All right, guys. Nice to see you. This is the first time I'm doing a live video, and I just wanted to see whether it may be something interesting to you. So, today, in the next 10 to 12 minutes, I'm going to be explaining to you what I believe is a massive difference between two driving mistakes that you can do in karting. And there's one mistake that I consider very bad, and there's one type of mistake that I consider very good. So you may be like, oh, but Alessio, all mistakes should be bad, shouldn't they? Well, I don't agree. Not all mistakes are treated equal. In fact, as you will see at the end of this video, you will be equipped to know, okay, these are the kind of mistakes I should look forward to make, and these instead are the mistakes that I shouldn't be looking forward to make. And that's not just based on my experience, that's also based on many, many drivers that I raced against and I spoke about, and also read I read books from Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, etc. And so they describe something very similar. They may not be using the same words as me, but they describe something very similar. Now, the two mistakes that I'm talking about and I'm referring to is overpushing, okay? Overpushing. My writing is not the best, but hope you can see. And then the other type of mistake is the opposite, which is underpushing. So, let me make them clear to you what it means. So, in simple terms, overpushing is, for example, when you are going into a corner, and let's say it's qualifying, and you have to discover the grip level. You never know exactly what the grip level of specific corner, because before qualifying everybody's going new tires. The categories before went on new tires, and so the track all of a sudden gets more grippy, but you don't know exactly where the grip is. So you have two choices to make. Either you go in full send mode in lap one and you try to, obviously, once your tires are up to temperature, you are gonna push beyond your limits in order to find the limit. So let's say that the hypothetical limit is this. So, okay, this is the hypothetical limit. All right, this is the corner, let's say. Okay, we are gonna make like this is the corner. All right, just gonna make the corner. Okay, this is like, well, it's not the best, but let's say you're arriving and okay, this is the corner. Okay, this is the hypothetical limit. So there's the corner in two different, the same corner, but two different approaches. All right, so the driver that is an overpushing mode is a driver that is going to push beyond the limit on lap one. So he's gonna, instead of braking, obviously, again, it's gonna be very hard to tell where the limit is. So obviously, as a driver, you are always guessing where the limit is, and so you're like, okay, I'm gonna brake here. And to be honest, most of the case, we don't even have the references where we brake, and so we have to brake by feeling. So the driver that is an overpushing mode, okay, that has this kind of mindset, is going to brake. Let's say the limit, let's say, is 25 meters from the apex. Okay, so from here to here, let's say it's 25 meters. The limit, the perfect point of braking in qualifying. I'm just making a random number. Okay, it's just like a random number. So who is the driver who's in overpushing mode is going to brake not at 25 meters, not at 30 meters, but on lap one he may be braking at 22 meters. Okay, so on lap one he may be braking at 22 meters, whereas the same other driver, that is an underpushing mode, which is much more conservative as a driver, is going to be braking at, let's say, 28 meters. So it's going, imagine, like, so the closer you get here and the less, obviously, the number. So it's going to be 28, 25, 23. Obviously, the further away, the higher the number. Okay, so you can see this driver. Obviously, both of them are going to be losing time. All right, both of them are going to be losing time, because this driver, let's say he brakes here. All right, he's going to be braking here, and I expect him to miss the apex, right, because he has overpushed. All right, so maybe the time loss is, let's say, 1/10 from the perfect, like, ideal corner. This driver, though, is obviously going to brake, in this case, if he's in underpushing mode, is going to brake early, and he's probably going to, most of the cases, turn early, makes the apex very easily, but most of the times, because he has an early apex, he loses on the exit too. But then what's going to happen on lap 2? On lap 2, okay, the overpushing driver is going to go, okay, you know what? I realized I just made a mistake. I made a mistake, and really quickly in his brain is like, okay, next lap I gotta brake a bit early because I missed the apex. I was super efficient, but I missed the apex. So what he's gonna do? The lap after is going to brake at 24 meters. Okay, it's gonna be braking at 24 meters, and what happens is that, as you can see, he's gonna brake, and because he's a bit earlier than before, he's almost going to make the apex, like just about missing it, but very, very tiny bit. Okay, the corner is still very fast. He only loses like 0.03, let's say 300ths of a second, which is obviously not amazing, but not bad. Whereas this other driver, which is in under pushing mode, is going to go from 28 meters to, let's say, 26.5, let's say 27. Okay, it's going to go to 27 meters. It's gonna go 27 meters, so he's gaining only 1 meter on the brakes. So as we said, he's a conservative driver. So again, he brakes early. Because he brakes early, automatically, it turns in. Oh, actually, let's make the opposite. So because he brakes a bit later, it turns a little bit later than before, but it's still too early, and it's still too early at the apex, and he still loses time. Let's say he loses like 0.05. Okay, he loses 0.05, so it's like half a tenth, whereas these other guys lost 0.03, which is 300ths. But you see where I'm going. So the two drivers, maybe on lap 3, both of them perfectly nail it, and they perfectly get to the absolute limit. This other driver get also to the perfect limit, and they both end up doing the absolute perfect corner, which I don't believe there isn't any such a thing as the perfect corner, because you can always do the corner like a 0.001 faster. And that's not only me saying it, by the way, it was also like Ayrton Senna used to say this. And so I thoroughly believe in this. Because, well, yeah, besides, that's the story for another day, but yeah, there's no such a thing as the perfect corner. You can always make at least 1,000 of a second faster, and if you believe you made the perfect corner, that's when you stop improving, that's when you stop growing. But the point I wanted to make is this: two drivers trying to get to the limit in two different ways. One who is over pushing, and the other is under pushing. So they're getting progressively to the limit, both, but in different ways. But you have to think about it. Why do I believe over pushing is way better than under pushing? Because first of all, when you over push, it takes less time. It takes less time to find the limit. So again, let's say this is the hypothetical limit, okay? You need to believe that, obviously, this is the hypothetical limit, right? Okay, I'm trying to make it proper. Okay, let's actually do it like that. Perfect. So this is the hypothetical limit, all right, for both drivers. So let's say this is the hypothetical limit. Problem is that if you are like the under pushing driver, which is in conservative mode, what he's going to do is that, okay, so this, let's say that, actually, let's make it like this. So this is the limit. This is the limit, okay, and these are the number of laps. So this is like lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, lap 4, lap 5, lap 6. Oh, I'm not gonna say that because otherwise. Okay, then same here. Lap 1, lap 2, lap 3. I don't want this to be too boring. Like I just wanted to prove a point. So these are two separate things, what's above and down. But hear me out. So the under pushing driver, so the conservative is lap 1, 2, oh. So lap 1, 2, 3, etc. 1, 2, 3, etc. So what's gonna do? This driver is going to be like, okay, let's say this is the limit. Okay, this is like 100%. Okay, so there's like 100%, and let's say here's like 90, there's like 80, here's like 110%. Okay, so again, here is 100%. Let's do the same here so that you get my point. So what's gonna happen? It's gonna happen that the driver here is on lap 1 most of the time going to be like driving at 80%. So he's gonna, as I said, brake very early. So it's gonna be like that. Then the next lap is gonna be at like 88%, then it's gonna be at 90%, then it's gonna be at 92, and then by the end of the session, he probably gets to the limit. And you will be like, oh, but Alessio, then he managed to get to the limit, So what's the problem? By lap 7, all right, he gets to the limit, and you're like, oh, what's the problem? look at the difference between the overpushing driver, which is the one I like. The overpushing driver does the opposite. So on lap one, what he does is, pam, he right away pushes beyond the limit. Let's say he goes to 105%. He realizes, oh, I pushed a bit too hard. And then he's like, I need to brake a bit earlier. And then already by lap 2 or 3, he has already found the limit. And you'll be like, oh, Alessio, you're saying this. I mean, there's nothing that can prove that. I'm telling you, it works like that. Because when you are under the limit, when you're under pushing, you never really know where was the limit. Think about it. If you make the apex so easily, you probably assume, I mean, if you're realistic, that you are not on the limit, right? Think about all the time that you make an apex and you're like, oh, I made it too easily, right? You're like, shit, I should have braked a bit later, And so it's like you put a mental sticky note in your brain, and like one of these. I don't know if you can see. It's like if you put a sticky note in your brain when you made the apex too easily, and you're like, okay, next lap I gotta definitely brake later because I braked too early. But again, you brake maybe like from the lap before, you just brake 1 meter later. But what if again you are like braking like 10 meters too early, right? It will take you 10 laps to do like 1 meter step. So it's gonna be so hard, it's gonna take so long. And if it's a qualifying where you have to you have to find the limit in 2-3 laps, it's gonna result in you not finding the limit till the end of the session. You're like, oh, but I know the track, I already know where the limit is. Well, yes, it could be a good argument, but the reality is that on new tires, the track always gets quite a bit faster, maybe sometimes half a second or sometimes even 1 second if the track becomes very, very grippy with soft tires from all the categories on the track. So, if you are the conservative driver that just pushes the limits just little by little, I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to get to the limit as fast as if you are that kind of driver that is an over pushing mode, this one here. And as I said, if I actually show you again, like this driver is going to be on above the limit, so it's going to brake too late in lap 1, miss the apex, lap 2 he brakes a bit too late again, lap 3 is on it. And then it's going to be like, obviously nobody's a robot. It's difficult to be perfect like every lap. I mean, not even Max Verstappen can do that. But for sure, if you are from that kind of if you have this kind of mentality and mindset, if you have no fear, if you're full of courage, and you just go in lap 1 and you send it and you just go a little beyond the limit, there's also another very, very important part that you have to consider, is that the tire temperatures play a massive role. And when with 90% of the tires in 90% of conditions, especially with these ecological tires nowadays that are so hard. I mean, last week we had a race with MGs at the Italian Championship. The more laps you do, the warmer they get, and every lap it gets faster and faster. So in like 6 minutes quali, the last lap is always going to be the quickest because the tires just need more temperature, need more energy, and so if you drive like a gentleman on lap 1, if you drive very conservatively, you're not going to warm up the tire as much as if you attack the corners like crazy in this kind of over pushing mentality, right? So this is another point, is not only it's very beneficial to be over pushing, obviously, unless you're in a street circuits. I mean, I raced in street circuits in Monaco, not Monaco, Macau, but and Po Grand Prix, Norris Ring. I love that in F3. And I didn't do it in F2, unfortunately, but in F3. And I also won a major Formula 3 race in Po. And that was such amazing time. But what you learn in the street circuit is that you cannot over push on lap 1, because otherwise, if you do it right away, you're in the wall. And not only you're going to lose a lot of track time, but it's very expensive, and you don't want to do that unless you're like Lance Stroll and you have a limited budget. But so what I learned from the street circuit is like I had to kind of like change my approach from my over pushing approach to being more like this guy, like under pushing mentality. Like this is all right. This is me all the time, right? But when I had to do the street circuits, I had to be more like this, because if you again overshoot the corner and you go into the wall, it's game over, right? Especially in quali or in a race. So you have to take it step by step, you have to get there. But what I realized is that I don't like that approach, and it's not efficient because it takes so long to get to the lap time. And so I was like, man, now I understand why it's so important to overpush in the first laps when you go to normal tracks, especially in karting. Karting, there's no street circuits. I mean, unless you're doing some street circuits races, but please ping me. I want to come too. That would be fun. But in karting, you don't have any problems with that. You can push your limits, and that's what I love about karting, is that you don't have to worry about crashing and having to spend 150 grand on the car repairs as you have to do in GT3s or in Formula cars, unfortunately. So in karting, it's the purest form of motorsport, I believe, and so you can really throw the kart and you can really push the limits, and that's so fun. By the way, I mean, that's what makes me alive when I drive, and I guess that's what makes you alive too. So when I go in a qualifying session, I mean, I'm like, on the first lap, I'm over push. Okay, obviously, I need to get basic temperature in the tires, because otherwise it's not good for the tire to start pushing and start sliding on the tire until there's basic in like core temperature. But what I noticed is that whenever I have the temperature, let's say lap 1 or 2, I'm like over pushing on the first laps, because so by doing so, I figure out right away where the limit is. Okay, it's so much easier for me to find the limit instead of waiting just for the last lap to find the limit. Because let's say there's like let's say there's like 12 corners in a lap. I'm just like making a random track. You don't only have to find the limit in one corner. You have to find the limit in different corner, like this one, turn 1, 2, turn 3. So if you are postponing this to the last lap when the tires are hot, you're probably not going to be able to find it in most of the corners. I mean, not even if you're the GOAT, I'm telling you. So you need to start finding the limit right away. Lap 2, I would say, after you get basic temperature in the tires. And as I said, by doing so, not only you will get closer to the limit faster, but also you will generate so much more heat and so much more energy into the tires. Because remember, whenever you push more into the corner, like if you have, like, this is another point, is you over push. Yes, it's not only the braking point, it's also how efficient you are on the brakes, for example. So if you are going and, let's say, over pushing, you'll realize you're missing a corner. You're like, holy shit, I gotta hold the brakes like crazy, and so you're gonna be maximum threshold braking, and then trailing the brakes until like at the apex, but you have to threshold brake at the beginning, like lock the tires, and by doing so, you generate a huge amount of temperatures. Whereas if you are this other driver here to the right, the underpushing driver, which is conservative, and you brake early, what are you going to do if you brake early, which 99% of the drivers do? They not only they turn early, but they release the brakes. And by doing so, you're not generating temperature, you're not generating you're just not generating grip, and especially in cold conditions or hard tires. As I said, if you're driving with the MGs or Maxes, if you're not generating the temperature, you're like driving on ice the first laps, and so it's like a vicious cycle, because you're not pushing in the first laps. You're gonna be sliding more and more, and I'm telling you, not only this is deadly for a quali, but it's also and way more deadly in a race. Because even if you manage to get P1 in quali, all right, because you have an amazing equipment, you do like the last lap, you're able to put everything together, and you do like a alien lap, like you put everything together somehow, let's say. But if you then go in the race and in lap 1 you take it step by step, and you're like 90% on the limit, in the first lap, and the others are already at 99 or 101, they're going to be not only warming up the tires way more than you, but they're going to be finding the limit way earlier than you. And so even if you are starting P1, you probably get passed by every corner, you're going to get overtaken at least by one driver. You know what I mean? So, and if it's 10 corners, you're going to get passed by 10 drivers. I mean, honestly, I am exaggerating, I know, but you have to understand the point. It's really like that. I believe there's these two kind of mistakes, and you should favor one over the other. If I see my drivers at the baby race are just too conservative, and they're, yes, losing 1/10 or 2/10 in one corner, but they do that because they brake early and release the brakes, and they do it not only in lap 1 but also in the last lap, I get so mad, because I'm like, mate, what are you afraid of? I mean, just over push the limits. And by the way, this is another important thing. You develop car control. When you're driving over the limit, you develop car control, which is an essential skill, right? I mean, it's like ice karting and those kind of skills, like driving the way. You develop car control, but you do not develop car control when you're driving below the limit. Like, think about it. When you're running in the engine, you're not developing car control because you're so far away from the limit. And therefore, you only develop a control when you are on the limit or above the limit. So you have to, oh shit, I'm missing the corner, I'm controlling oversteer, controlling understeer, etc. So just by definition, this thing alone just should should frame you into this mindset of just being overpushing. Of course, when you get to the last laps, you obviously want to bring it back, but it's not like, oh, Alessio said you should overpush, now you're gonna miss the apex just because Alessio said so. No, I mean, like, you need to do it strategically. I'm so happy if you miss the apex the first few laps of a session to get, finding the limit. As I said, you start by missing that, like, over the limit, and then you gradually find the limit, and you obviously, the goal is by the end of the session you are on the limit, not above the limit. Come on, let's be real. But the equally the only way and the best way to get to the limit is to really go beyond it and then get closer. Guys, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, I'm telling you, I came from Formula 3 and Formula 2 where I was so freaking scared of destroying the car when I was in Macau, and my father, before getting into the car, was like, Alessio, make sure, yeah, push, but be careful, huh? You can better to lose 1/10 but not destroy the car, because he made me realize more many times that we didn't have the budget, and so if, like, I crashed, not only I wouldn't be able to race in the next races, but I had to probably stop altogether. So every time I go and drive on track now with my kart, I'm like, there's not like, I think about those days where I had, the constraints, not only about the walls, that if you overpush or in the wall, you're not driving, but also the financial thing. Like, oh shit, I cannot overpush, because not only will I not be driving, but we will also have to pay, because, in Formula cars and GTs, like, there's no insurance that can cover. It's like, it's a bit of a broken model. But yeah, if you try to find that alpha 10th and you destroy the car and you have to spend 200 grand to repair that, I mean, well, I guess if you're, again, Lance Stroll, and that's nothing. I have had teammates where it was like nothing, oh, okay, it's no problem. It's like literally nothing. It's like pocket change for them. I had a bunch of teammates like that, but thankfully I was not I was not the case. I mean, and so, long story short, when I got back to karting, I'm like, this is amazing. I can overpush the limits without any constraints, without any fear of making damages. What's the worst? You're gonna pick up some dirt, some grass, some stones when you go off the track, and that's amazing. And by the way, I have this rule at Baby Race, especially in the testing days when they have to learn new tracks. I'm like, if you're not coming out of the session with some grass or some dirt on the car, like that you clearly went off the track because you pushed the limits. Obviously, there's two ways to go off the track. One, it's because you push more limits and you try to use more track, for example, on entry, and you just dropped the wheel and you went off, or because you over pushed the corner, you went off on the exit, you went on the gas twirl and you went off on the exit. Or there's another way, that's like forgetting to turn and missing the corner with like little speed, or that's another kind of mistake. But again, it's very rare, to be honest, to go off the track because you're not pushing enough. But again, you should be doing these mistakes. You should be framing your mindset of going on the track next time you go out and be like, you know what? I'm gonna choose being over pushing rather than under pushing. And on lap 1, I'm gonna find the limit. I'm gonna be beyond the limit, and by doing so, it's gonna be much easier to find the limit and go back to it. Not only that, it's gonna be so much better for my tires because I'll generate temperature earlier on. I'll have a much better aggressive driving style, especially in the race. I mean, I remember Max Verstappen, and I was looking up to him. He was always like one category above me, except 2-3 races we did together in juniors. And I remember this guy in lap 1, he would like smoke coming out of his tires in the Winter Cup in January. It was like, or February. He's like in this race at Lonato, like he was going through the lap 1, like braking so hard, like locking the tires, and the rear was like smoking. And but by doing so, not only he could brake super late, but he could generate so much tire temperature. And I learned from him. He was winning that race in his category in those seniors, and I was winning in junior. And he was winning it in shifters, and I was winning in seniors. We won it together, with back-to-back wins, and that was considered as like the world championship. There was like 120 drivers per category that those years. Unfortunately, that there's no more of that race. But yeah, I remember that I was looking up to him, like, this guy in lap 1 and 2 is pushing like crazy, much more than anybody. He would build a huge gap, like 1-2 seconds gap within the first 5 laps, and then it would be easy for him, and you would keep pushing, but it would once the gap is established, then everybody would start fighting in the back, and it was like you would see that it was like such an easy win for him. But the reason why he was so good, not only was warming up the tires so well in the formation lap, but Max was just like amazing in the first couple of laps. He would just like push more than the others, generate more temperature, And yeah, I learned from that. I learned from that moment, and that I had to do the same. And it's just my standard operating procedure now. Like, you will see me going off the track, you'll see me making mistakes because I use too much track, because I brake too late, because I get on the gas too early, stuff like that. So yeah, I hope this relates to you, and try applying this next time you're on track. I hope this video was interesting. Let me know if you have some suggestions for other videos like that. If you like this kind of whiteboard format, please let me know in the comments. I would like to do it at least once a week, and obviously if I have the time. But I hope you liked it. Let's get in touch somehow. I'll see